Dragon Ball is home to some of the most powerful and beloved characters ever put to anime. Hell, many of them are part of the modern pop culture lexicon. But when it comes to throwdown in the Dragon Ball games, not every fighter is gonna make the cut. Some seem to make sense, while others left us wondering where the heck they were. Before we get started, subscribe to TheGamer and ring that bell to keep up to date with all our latest videos. Without further ado, here are 10 powerful Dragon Ball characters who were snubbed from the games. Vegito. One of the most powerful transformations in the Dragon Ball Z sagas, this one needed to be undertaken to dish out the pain in the Buu saga. Goku and Vegeta fused together to become Vegito, and would undertake the transformation again in Super in their battle against Fused Zamasu. Considering Gotenks is in Dragon Ball FighterZ, which is the fusion between Trunks and Goten, it's curious that Vegito isn't part of the lineup. They're not even listed as upcoming DLC, so it's a pity fans couldn't get their hands on this powerful fusion character in the latest fighting game. Cabba in Xenoverse 2 and FighterZ. Cabba was introduced to fans in Dragon Ball Super's third saga, titled Universe 6. In it, the 6th and 7th universes compete in a tournament to win the legendary Super Dragon Balls for their respective God of Destruction, lest he destroy their universe. Oh, that's nice. We learn that there were other Saiyans in the universes, like Cabba. He may be young and inexperienced, but once he got the push, he proved that he had the potential to be a powerful adversary. Having him in the game would be fun, as he, like Goku, doesn't have the inherent battle-ready nature and would be a fun contrast to play as. Master Roshi in Xenoverse 1, 2, and FighterZ. For the unanimated, Master Roshi is the man who raised and trained Goku. He's also the man who invented the Kamehameha, so you know he has some skills. He was present in Super's battle against Frieza's soldiers, and even blows up the moon in Dragon Ball to hinder Goku's Great Ape transformations. But he's completely absent in the last few Dragon Ball games. Why is that? Roshi is awesome, guys, and we'd love to go toe-to-toe against Goku with him for old time's sake. Plus, seeing the skinny old man get super buff and dish out the pain has to be one of the best moments for longtime fans of the manga and anime. Whis. Dragon Ball Super introduced us to Beerus and Whis, and they have become series mainstays throughout the new arcs. Beerus is a god of destruction and has been featured in both FighterZ and Xenoverse 2. But Whis, on the other hand, got snubbed on his return to consoles and was not part of the roster in FighterZ. What gives? Considering Whis is the one who trains Beerus, Goku, and Vegeta, it's a bit alarming to see that the well-mannered foodie is absent as a playable character from the game. If Beerus can be in the game and not affect the difficulty at all, then Whis should be in the game as well. Hell, we've even beaten Beerus with Krillin, and that's saying something. Poor Krillin. Dr. Gero in Xenoverse 1, 2, and FighterZ. The main story mode in FighterZ dealt largely with the androids, mainly the newly created Android 21. The story takes place between future Trunks and Universal Survival arcs in Super, and would have been a great moment to reintroduce gamers and die-hard Dragon Ball fans to Dr. Gero. Gero, also known as Android 20, is the individual who masterminded the Red Ribbon Army and was the primary antagonist in the Android saga, ultimately being killed off by 17. Having the androids play a big part in the story would have been great and would have allowed fans to play as Gero, who's been absent in both Xenoverse games and FighterZ. Zarbin in Xenoverse 1 and FighterZ. Zarbin is one of Frieda's henchmen and one of the few villains who made the jump from Dragon Ball Z to the non-canon GT timeline. Unlike most villains, Zarbin puts his image and beauty above all other things. But like many Dragon Ball characters, he can transform as he goes from his handsome form to his repulsive form, which is massive and grotesque. Having him show up in FighterZ would have been awesome, and his absence was noticed in Xenoverse. He showed up in Xenoverse 2, but that makes his absence in FighterZ that much more apparent. We're all for some fighting moves inspired by Zarbin's looks. Majin Vegeta in Xenoverse 1 and FighterZ. How did this one ever happen? Better yet, how has it happened 3 times in a row? Majin Vegeta has found himself absent from both the Xenoverse games and the recently released Dragon Ball FighterZ. With no DLC plans for him on the horizon, we know the Dragon Ball games allow you to play as villainous characters all the time, with Kid Buu as a playable character in FighterZ and all. So why isn't Majin Vegeta allowed to be in these games? We expect to see Vegeta's villainous return at some point in the future, or we'll be pretty upset. Kefla in Xenoverse 2 and FighterZ. In Dragon Ball Super, we're introduced to the concept of other Saiyans in other universes in the Universe 6 saga, as mentioned before. That concept is expanded upon later when we meet Kale and Caulifla, Saiyans from Universe 6 who complete the vegetable joke. When fused together, they form Kefla, and she's seriously missing in the Dragon Ball rosters. Dragon Ball has always been short on female fighters, and they're making more of an effort these days. But with Kefla absent in Xenoverse 2 and FighterZ, one has to wonder why she hasn't been included. In the next game or the sequel to FighterZ, we hope Kefla is included. Raditz. Raditz was the very first antagonist in Dragon Ball Z. The biological brother to Goku, he was one of the remaining Saiyans, along with Kakarot, Nappa, and Vegeta. He may be dead in the show, but he's appeared in the last 2 Xenoverse games, proving death isn't permanent in a video game. Having these classic and original characters missing from the FighterZ roster is a bit frustrating, especially when you consider his relationship to Goku and that Nappa is in the game instead. We like Nappa and all, but Raditz is much cooler than him, and we would have loved to have him on the screen fighting alongside his fellow Saiyans. Mr. Satan, Hercule. You know what would make fighters really hard? Having Mr. Satan on your roster. He may not have any powers like the rest of the Z fighters, but Mr. Satan is the world martial arts champion after all, and knows a thing or two about hand-to-hand combat. Having him on a team would serve as a handicap of sorts, but for those thrill seekers looking for a challenge, having Mr. Satan on their team would be the best and most fun way to do it. Plus, we'd have some hilarious lines of dialogue from him in the middle of battles, and that's always worth it in our books. Well, that's it, everyone. Which Dragon Ball character do you find gets snubs from games the most? Who do you hope gets added to FighterZ in the next DLC patch? Why do you think some of these characters get snubbed despite being popular or new? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like this video and subscribe to TheGamer for more videos like this one in your playlist every day. Thanks for watching.